He was crying today. I saw him wiping tears from his face in court. He said, "I hate myself right now," before the judge and before this sentence came down.
He'll be a lot better off in prison than he is in the federal jail. You know, at least there you can move around and you got some freedom on the yard and things like that.
Combs, in his own words, saying he realizes he's in a situation where no amount of money or fame can save him.
What I want to do with my freedom is, make sure that I can make change.
Sean Diddy Combs will be sentenced to 50 months in prison. That is 50 months in prison. Far less than the 11 years requested, far more than the 14 months. He will not walk out of the door behind me in the courtroom today. He will not be a free man for 50 months. The judge says, which is a little shy of 4.25 years, this is a serious sentence that reflects the gravity of your crimes and conducts. He also says this is a hard time away from your family, but also notes that Combs will have a life after prison, after 50 months. This is demonstrating to the court the gravity of the crimes and the conduct, Casey. Here you have it. 50 months for the 2 charges, transportation for the purpose of prostitution, the Mann Act violations. They tried very hard as the defense today, Casey, to suggest that would be a high sentence given the fact that the defense says he did not financially benefit and profit from these so-called prostitution acts. The judge rejecting it almost out of hand, sentencing the music mogul, convicted in July by a jury of his peers, to 50 months in prison.
They told us the powerful never fall. They said the headlines are temporary, the lawyers are permanent, and the machine always finds a way to rewind the tape. But the tape didn't rewind this time. The music stopped, the room got quiet, and the man who once treated the industry like his personal chessboard found himself sitting under harsh lights he didn't control. No flashy intro, no carefully produced montage, no velvet rope, just reality, a judge, a sentence, a name that once ruled the nightlife, now written on a docket number. That sound you heard wasn't applause, it was a courtroom door closing. This is the moment when the brand finally met the bill and the bill came due.
Tonight, prosecutors asking a judge to sentence Sean Diddy Combs to more than 11 years in federal prison, arguing he engaged in violence and put others in fear. A stark contrast to Combs' legal team, who are seeking 14 months, which would see him walk free in a matter of weeks, as he's already served 13 months in prison.
Look for the judge to land somewhere in the middle, split the difference, a sentence of maybe 4 to 6 years.
Combs was convicted on prostitution charges over the summer, but acquitted of sex trafficking and racketeering, which carried up to a life sentence in prison. A source familiar with Combs' strategy telling NBC News that the mogul plans to address the court himself during his sentencing hearing. Both sides have submitted letters to the judge, one written by Cassie Ventura, Combs' former girlfriend, who was a key prosecution witness, writing in part, "I am so scared that if he walks free, his first actions will be swift retribution towards me and others who spoke up." Combs' 85-year-old mother writing that her son has made some terrible mistakes in his life, which I know he recognizes.
Let's talk about what happens when a persona becomes a prison. For years, the story was glitz and glamour, an image built on endless nights and louder rooms. The story said he was untouchable, inevitable, a storm you learn to live with, but stories can be rewritten. In that courtroom, the cameras couldn't soften the edges, the voice that used to command a crowd cracked, the eyes looked heavy, and his script didn't land the way it used to. He told the judge he was different now. He said he hated who he had been. He said he wanted mercy, and the silence that followed did more talking than any publicist ever could.
Chaotic scenes as Diddy's family came to court to support him at his sentencing.
How you feeling today, Mama?
His mother, Janice, was followed by his son, Quincy, and 3 daughters who entered court hand in hand. Another son and his girlfriend were also there to show their support.
What you've given to the world, I don't think you know, man.
When my baby cries.
You gotta give her a bottle then.
Know that you mean something to people. Know that you mean something to people, like you live somewhere in people's heart.
My nose fell off! No, then my lip fell off! Thank you. You wear it?
this country and this world we live in may have planned for y'all, I didn't listen to that, and I don't want y'all to listen to it either. And I'm happy to say this is our third school we have opened. It's official. When we come together as a people, nothing can stop us. But what I want to do with my freedom is, make sure that I can make change. You will change the world.
I've been through hell.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna make it.
You're gonna make it, that's right. Now I got something for you. Remember I told you I had a present for you?
Yeah. Ooh, ain't that pretty.
This is a heart, because you my heart.
Oh.
All right?
Okay.
You my heart.
We watched the performance within the performance, a carefully cut reel of family moments, charity, community, hope. It had everything. Kids laughing, hands clasped, classrooms visited, promises to do better. The production value was high. The message was clear. Remember the good, forget the rest. But here's the thing about highlight reels, they can't erase the record. In that room, the judge didn't watch a trailer, the judge read a file. Not a sizzle reel, but a timeline. And when the sentence came, it wasn't the brand getting weighed, it was the conduct. Accountability finally caught up, and image couldn't save him from it. The defense wanted the story to end with redemption on cue. They asked for the curtain call after Act 1. He's learned his lesson. Roll credits. But remorse isn't a montage, and justice isn't a music video. The prosecution pushed back, hard. They talked about harm, fear, and the weight of choices. They showed how power can bend the air in a room, how money can press down on the truth until it can't breathe. They asked the court to look past the lights and see the pattern. The judge did. The sentence wasn't a headline, it was a message.
On the eve of his sentencing, Sean Diddy Combs, the fallen music mogul, writing a federal judge pleading for mercy. He writes in part, "I have to admit, my downfall was rooted in my selfishness." He apologized to two of the women who accused him of abuse, including Cassie Ventura, who he assaulted. This as prosecutors are asking for an 11-year prison sentence for Combs after he was found guilty of 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. Laura Jarrett joins us now live in studio. Laura, you have the letter right there, and he makes it very clear he's asking the judge to be let go to his family right now.
Tom, it's a pretty striking letter. Combs, in his own words, saying he realizes he's in a situation where no amount of money or fame can save him. He writes this: "I have been humbled and broken to my core. Jail is designed to break you. There have been some days I thought I would be better off dead." He goes on to say, Tom, that he lost everything from his businesses to time with his children. He's a single father. He also apologizes, notably, to the women who prosecutors say he abused. He says that video, that infamous video of him abusing Cassie, plays over in his head daily. "I literally lost my mind." He says he's a changed man. He says he's sober for the first time in 25 years. He will have an opportunity to address the court there tomorrow. Remember, of course, his lawyers are asking for just 14 months. Prosecutors asking for far greater, 11 years behind bars. He was acquitted of the charges, though, of course, that could have kept him behind bars for the rest of his life.
Prosecutors are asking for a substantial sentence of just over 11 years, writing it's needed because Combs is unrepentant, that he largely conceded his conduct, the violence, domestic abuse, drug use, and distribution, and bribery. Former girlfriend Cassie Ventura, who testified at trial, submitted a victim impact letter that reads in part, quote, "My worries that Sean Combs or his associates will come after me and my family is my reality." She says they moved, and she is, quote, "keeping as private and quiet as I possibly can because I am so scared that if he walks free, his first actions will be swift retribution towards me and others who spoke up about his abuse trial." We spoke with attorney Rich Schoenstein, who is not involved in the case. Combs has no prior criminal history, and the U.S. Probation Department recommends a sentence range of 5 to 7 years.
I think that's probably the right range. I don't think he's going to get a short sentence like the defense wants, and I also don't think he's going to get the maximum. So I think that middle ground is where most people expect this to go, but We will see. It's up to the judge.
And yes, he cried. He said the words people say when they run out of time. I'm sorry. I hate what I've done. I want to be better. He said he was sober now. He said he had been broken down to the foundation. But there are some doors no speech can open. The court isn't a stage. And tears don't count as evidence. If you're truly different, it doesn't start with what you say in front of the microphones. It starts with what you did when no one was watching. For too long, the world watched a man who treated consequences like rumors. That changed. The room changed. The tone changed. And when he stood up to speak, he wasn't the architect of a narrative anymore. He was a defendant asking for time he hadn't earned. The family showed up. Mothers, sons, daughters, voices shaking, talking about the father they know, the history they share, the empty seats at the table that a jail cell only makes emptier. They cried because the system doesn't stop just because you're loved. And that's the hardest lesson. Love can witness your sentence, but it can't commute it. The court weighed compassion and still came back with accountability. You can be two things at once. A dad who means the world to his kids and a man who has to answer for his actions. That tension is brutal, but it's real. The judge didn't deny their pain. The judge refused to let it outrun the facts. Out in the industry, you could feel the ground shifting. The calls got quieter, the favors got fewer. The people who used to orbit close suddenly found a reason to be on a different planet. This is how Hollywood protects itself, silence dressed up as timing. But beneath the silence, everyone heard the same thing. The old playbook failed. The old pressure didn't work. You can't network a sentence away. You can't DJ over the sound of a gavel. And you can't turn a courtroom into a club. The night ends, the lights come on, and everyone sees what's left on the floor. He tried to project forward, talk of appeal, talk of coming back, talk of walking out next week as if the calendar belonged to him. But reality has its own schedule. The plan to step from the courtroom to a podium didn't make sense to anyone living on Earth. Booking anything before the judge speaks? That's not confidence, that's arrogance. It told the public everything about the mindset that fueled this downfall, the belief that life will always bend for you because it always has. Not today, not in that room, not when the cost is counted in people, not ticket sales.
Dear Judge, I have had an ongoing dispute with Puffy for over 20 years. He is very dangerous. Multiple times I have feared for my life. I think you should consider the safety of the general public, Your Honor, before unleashing him upon them. There hasn't been enough time for him to reform or make any adjustments, despite his trying to teach class in there. As you are already aware, the government has spent the maximum amount of money on deploying federal agencies, which appear to be an army in 2 locations simultaneously. Later, his son, who's dealing with his own allegations, claimed that the feds had hit the wrong house. Anyway, Diddy's only going to return to hiring more sex workers and keeping most of the baby oil away from the general public. And the babies need it. My Netflix doc on this scandalous subject is coming soon. In the caption of his post, 50 Cent wrote, "This is my letter to the judge on Diddy's case. What? I'm scared for my life." Now, while 50 Cent shared this petty letter for the entertainment of his fans and followers in the streets of social media, there are some people who did indeed write real letters to the judge. Cassie penned a powerful and emotional letter, basically telling the judge that she is still having nightmares from what she endured during.
There was a letter. There were many letters. Letters pleading for mercy, letters describing fear, letters saying the past doesn't vanish just because the future demands it. A case isn't a single moment. It's a mosaic of choices. And when the court stepped back to look, it didn't see a one-off mistake. It saw a pattern that power wrapped in gloss. The sentence reflected that. Not the maximum, not the minimum. A line drawn in the middle, but still a line. When that number landed, you could see it on his face. The brand couldn't negotiate with math. What happens next? Transfer, intake, a different pace, a different set of rules, freedom traded for routine, the yard instead of the yacht, the count instead of the club. There will be talk of programs, reductions, halfway houses. There will be lawyers saying we'll be back. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But even if the number changes, one thing won't. The story of invincibility is over. The marketplace that once moved to his beat now moves around him. If he wants a second chapter, he'll have to write it with something the industry can't produce. A real change no camera can fake. This is bigger than one man. It's a stress test for an entire ecosystem that let celebrity pass for character and success pass for virtue. Gatekeepers winked, enablers clapped, critics got bought out by access and invites, but the courtroom doesn't RSVP. The courtroom doesn't care if you're trending. The courtroom is the place where everybody knows becomes prove it. And when proof shows up, it doesn't care who's on the red carpet. It cares about the record. That's why this moment matters. It says the record can still be heard over the noise. Some will say 4 years isn't enough. Some will say 4 years is too much. Here's what matters. 4 years is a wall between who he said he was and what he actually did. 4 years is time he can't schedule, brand, or monetize. 4 years means the next move isn't a surprise drop. It's a daily choice in a place where excuses don't trend. If there's a comeback, it won't be engineered in a boardroom or rehearsed in a mirror. It'll be measured by how little he centered himself in a story that isn't about him anymore. Remember the last words he offered: apology, regret, the language of a man who finally noticed the cliff after sprinting across the edge for years. But apology is an entry fee, not a passport. If you really changed, you change when the camera's off. You stop trying to score points with videos of soft-focus fatherhood while the facts are hard-edged. You stop making the pain of others a backdrop for your monologue. You stand in the truth without a spotlight and live with the echo. That's the difference between a rebrand and repentance. There's a lesson here for the industry that looked the other way. Proximity to power is not a moral compass. Being in the room doesn't mean you have to clap. Being on the payroll doesn't mean you have to lose your voice. The fear that kept people quiet is the same fear that keeps rot alive. When people finally speak, it doesn't create the problem. It exposes it. If you loved the art, then you should want it made by people who don't treat life like a disposable prop. And there's a lesson here for us too. Don't confuse charisma with character. Don't confuse attention with integrity. Don't confuse volume with truth. The loudest person in the room isn't always the one who earned the mic. The most famous name isn't always the safest bet. The brand that tells you it's bigger than life is usually trying to sell you a life it doesn't actually live. When you see the pattern, believe it the first time. When you hear the rationalizations, remember who benefits. When you watch a highlight reel, ask who edited it and what they cut. He wanted the judge to imagine a future where he redeems himself. The court imagined something else. A future where the people who endured the worst don't have to watch him turn their pain into a promotional tour. Let me be a father again, he said. Fatherhood is sacred, but fatherhood without accountability is just a word. If he wants that role back, earn it where it matters, privately, consistently, quietly, not in a press conference, not with a soundtrack, with time, with actions, with humility that doesn't need to be filmed. The appeals will come, the pundits will argue, some will posture as if the sentence is an attack on art itself, as if accountability is an enemy of creativity. That's a lie told by people who confuse power with permission. Great art doesn't require a shield from consequence. Great art stands on craft, not coercion. If the only way your empire stands is by leaning on those you hurt, then it's not an empire. It's a scaffolding built over a sinkhole, and gravity always wins. He built a world where saying no sounded like career suicide. He turned rooms into weather systems that bent around him. That's over. The climate changed. The forecast is accountability. The path forward isn't complicated. Accept the time, do the work, tell the truth without asking anyone to clap, and leave the spotlight off. The longer you reach for it, the longer the shadow stretches behind you. The only light that matters now is the one you can't control, the light that finds the facts. And for those still making excuses on his behalf, ask yourself why. Are you defending a person, or are you defending a past that protects you from hard questions about what you ignored? The culture of he's too big to fail is the parasite eating the host. Every time we choose brand over boundary, someone pays. Every time we decide access is worth our silence, we mortgage the future to subsidize the worst of the present. The bill eventually arrives, it just landed. Look closely at that courtroom image. The man who once could summon 1,000 people with a text now waits for an officer to nod before he stands. That's not a glitch in the system, that's the system functioning. When you use your reach to stretch past what's right, the recoil hurts. This isn't cancel culture, this is consequence culture. It's overdue and it belongs to everyone, not just the famous. If justice means anything, it means you can't buy an alternate ending. Will he cooperate? Will he cut down the number with names and details? Maybe, maybe not. But even that question tells you where we are now. The power has shifted. He's not the kingmaker anymore. He's a man in a system he didn't design, trying to negotiate with rules that don't care who used to show up to his parties. He spent years deciding who got in and who stood outside. Now there's a line he can't skip, a process he can't comp, and a door that doesn't open just because he expects it to. If you're still clinging to the myth that talent cancels out harm, this is your final warning. Talent is not a moral exemption. Success is not a character reference. And legacy isn't a force field, especially when its bricks were laid with the help of people who were expected to be quiet. You want a real legacy? Make something that doesn't collapse when the truth walks in. So here's the conclusion you won't see on a PR deck. He lost the one thing he thought he could never lose, the illusion that he was in control. The sentence is more than time. It's a mirror. It shows what the industry looked like when it laughed along, and it shows what it can look like when that laughter finally stops. If he wants to rebuild, he'll have to start at ground level with the tools everyone else uses: honesty, patience, making amends without turning the process into a press tour. Anything less is just the old game in a new suit. To the people who stood up, spoke out, wrote the letters, told the truth, this moment doesn't erase what happened. It doesn't rewrite those nights or refill those years. But it does something the brand couldn't. It acknowledges you in a language the powerful finally have to respect. It says your voice is not background noise. It says the spotlight can burn as well as shine. It says the room belongs to you too. And to the man at the center of it, you can keep rehearsing speeches, or you can do the quiet work nobody claps for. You can keep looking for shortcuts, or you can take the long road back to being a person instead of a logo. You can keep cutting reels to convince people you've changed, or you can change and let the silence speak for you. You told the judge you hated who you were. Prove it to the people who paid the price for it. Not today, not with a camera, every day, with nothing filmed. Because in the end, every empire runs out of soundtrack, every brand runs out of slogans, every party runs out of night. What's left is the person you are when the door shuts and the lights go off. That's where this story lives now. In days you can't edit, in choices you can't promote. If a second chance ever arrives, it won't be delivered by applause. It'll be earned in the only place you couldn't buy, the truth. And that's the lesson the industry has tried and failed to learn for decades. The door isn't invincible, the money isn't magic, the name isn't sacred, the work of being decent can't be delegated, the harm you do isn't canceled by the songs you make or the parties you throw. And when the judge finally speaks, you find out whether you built a life or just a legend. Today, the legend didn't show up. The life did, and life, at last, had to answer. So we close on an image that actually means something, not the after party, not the standing ovation, not the stage tears, but the long walk out of that courtroom and into a future no one will curate for him. A future with fewer mirrors and more windows. A future where the only thing that counts is whether he can face the world he helped break without trying to bend it again. If he can, maybe there's something down the line worth hearing. If he can't, then the silence that follows won't be grief, it'll be relief. Either way, the era of pretending is over. The house lights are on, the exits are open, the record plays on, but not for him, not anymore.